And welcome to another episode of Solutions with Soul, the Mohawk Mystic, this modern mystic. And today I got an awesome show for you, an awesome interview. This is my friend Val. And I'm telling you, man, every time we get together, we always have so much fun, laughing all the time. And even when we talk about the serious nature of things, I feel so fulfilled after being with this man. So I wanted to make sure to be able to share him with you guys, and you guys can feel it off of him too, and then also soak in his wisdom. And so, Val, would you do me a favor and let these people know a little bit about your background and where you're from, and a little bit about what you're doing now?
My name is Val Reznik, and currently I work with people having awakening experiences. I'm a psychotherapist. And the reason I do that is because I had one myself some 28 years ago, and since then I've been on a path trying to figure out what happened to me. And as a part of that, collected a number of practices and tools that help me reconnect back to the experience of what I think of as my true self, like my essential truth experience of consciousness. It's a little bit greater than my body and mind. And it's been my desire and honor to deepen into that experience with everything I have. And so I think that in this lifetime, hopefully for me, it's all about awakening. And I know it might sound a little corny, but I hope this is the last lifetime, that I don't have to come back and redo this. I kind of feel like this is a kindergarten that we're all in. And once we can see the truth and work on being able to first identify it for ourselves, right, have our own experience of it, and then maintain it, and we get to graduate, I think. And so my mind works that way. I look at experiences through that lens. Does it help me to become more present? Does it help me to maintain presence?
Yeah, and he's very good at it, especially I notice it when we talk about things like myself am developing in understanding, like being more conscious of awareness of where I am, who I am, and what's going on with my life, right? Because I used to be very, I say, unconscious and of this world, like all the pleasures, all the whatever that could be gained. That's what I was after, right? And then this, not that long ago, about 6 years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago, is when I started on this trek too of, and I haven't had an awakening experience, as people would say, but I've awakened a lot more from where I was before. And it's amazing to talk to people like you and other people that I've ran into that talk about awakening and being conscious and understanding what's going on, and maintaining is really the work, because it's so easy to go unconscious again,
Right.
and fall into the patternistic way of living life.
True.
Right. Yeah. Would you, because I know a little bit about you, would you be willing to tell them some of the things that you've done to maybe gain more awareness or consciousness, or align to the way that you want to do, even the radical stuff that you told me, if you'd be willing to share?
Definitely. Over 28 years, I've done a lot of shit that didn't work. And I found that now that I'm working with clients who are also having awakening experiences, it's the journey is a lot shorter. What took me, 28 years happens in 2-3 years for them now, because I can at least share my experience of shit that didn't work. Right? And when I first had this experience, I was working as a landscape architect in San Jose, and I was sitting on a park bench reading Einstein's Dreams, which is a little novelette about Einstein's theories about time, but it's a playful one, like what would happen if time was sticky, what would happen if time went backwards, what would happen if people didn't have memories. And so I really enjoyed reading the book, and when I finished reading it, I realized that even though I was wearing a watch, I didn't really know anything about time. And not only did I not know anything about time, I realized that my brain simply wasn't complex enough to understand this complex subject. And in that moment of humility, my brain ground to a halt. Like I could actually feel gears come to an end, like stop moving inside my head. Yeah. And in an absence of narrative, constant narrative that we have going on all the time, right? Our mind trying to figure out the next move. Everything looked super 3D. Like I normally wear glasses, but without glasses, I could see a building that was sorry,
Excuse me.
that was like 50 yards away from me. I could see the texture as if it was in front of my eyes. No time stopped. Everything was like my mind felt joyful, like it felt high, right? And at the same time, without narrative, I could see what I could only think of now, even though it sounds crazy, to molecular level of things. Like my ability to perceive just expanded to such a point that it just blew my mind. So to me, my life before that seemed like a black and white cartoon compared to this Technicolor experience. Like it was the most real thing I have ever experienced. And I was not a simple person to begin with. Like I grew up Jewish in Russia, and I got a lot of difficult experiences because of that. In Russia, Jewish is openly prosecuted, right? And like I was rebelled against the authority, and found myself arrested. And Jewish kids who got arrested in Russia oftentimes didn't make it out of jail.
Oh, wow.
And so my mom dealt with all kinds of crazy experiences because of what I went through. And so I honestly thought that by the time I hit 17 or 18, I'd be in jail and maybe not come out. Like that was my trajectory. I started running away from school early because I got beat up in school by teachers and students, and started stealing early because mom couldn't afford. She was working 4 jobs and couldn't afford anything for me. And so my first jacket I stole, my first bicycle I stole, got caught by the cops for stealing a bike, and ran away from the cops, stealing my way through the Russian through country at 15.
Wow.
Right? Because if they put me into jail then, I knew I wasn't going to come out. So it wasn't an easy childhood, but when the opportunity to leave Russia came about, I grabbed onto it because at the time only athletes and political figures could leave Russia. It's like for us today to go to Mars, right? Like, do you want to go to Mars? You're like, yeah.
Who are you?
Exactly,
you got to be famous or something, right?
Exactly. And so when we got a chance to leave, because I'm Jewish, and there was a pact between United States and Russia that the foreign nationals will let out, and as soon as the state of Israel was created, now I became the foreign national. Like there was a country that I could go to. And so we got traded in 1979 for a certain amount of nuclear missiles between the United States and Russia.
Oh,
and so
wow.
for a certain amount of Jews, certain amount of nuclear missiles would get destroyed by the United States.
Wow.
Right. And then when
that's amazing. I never heard of that.
And so that
you guys were literally the bomb, right?
Exactly. Right. And so that was an interesting point. But as soon as I left Russia, right, as soon as I felt like that, knowing like half of my family was killed by Germans and the other one got killed by Russians, right, for speaking out against them. And so as soon as I left that certainty that no matter what I do, it wouldn't be good enough, right, I opened up, and the things changed for me. And so I came to the States and I went exploring, and my full abilities, my full gifts started manifesting, right, because all of a sudden it was fun to do. It was not an easy process. We came here with $90, lived in projects where we're pretty much the only white family there, And,
I can see that being
right. That was an interesting experience, And then
not only white but Russian, right? Russian
Jew. Not being able to speak English. At least being Russian and Jewish at the time here, being Jewish was better than being Jewish in Russia. That was nice. Like I didn't have to face. But I found out that I was white when I came here. I didn't know that.
You were on the wrong side of the prejudice line. They were like, "What are you doing over there with them?"
And didn't speak English. And so at the time, in New York City in 1979, the only choices I had were, like, I worked in a steel factory trying to make enough money to help my mom go to school. And then the only choices I had to move out of that were either mafia or United States Army. And so I picked the Army and went in the Army as a Russian kid without speaking any English, with a strangely Russian name that I changed so that I would get picked on. And did 4 years in the American Army, came out as a sergeant, was trained as a scout, right? Very quickly, like got my sergeant very quickly, and learned how to speak English because
Quick, huh?
very quickly because when I was in sergeant school, they would run me around the yard when everybody else went to sleep, singing cadence, right? Like at 10, 11 o'clock at night when everybody goes to sleep at 10, until they couldn't understand what I was saying.
Dang, that's terrible.
Right? So I guarantee that if you want to learn a foreign language, that's the fastest way to do that. And
we don't understand you, private. Right? Oh man.
Right. And so I came out of there, went to, got money for college, went to a university in Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and got a degree in landscape architecture, and was working in San Jose as a landscape architect, suitcase and everything. When this happens to me, right? So at this point, I'm a very serious person, really putting everything I can into being the best version of materialistic immigrant that I can possibly can to succeed in this country, right?
Yeah.
And so this happens to me, right? All of a sudden, I see something that is just way outside of anything that I've ever witnessed before. Till this point, I was as straight as they came. I didn't drink. I wouldn't do any drugs. Like, it was just not in my vocabulary at the time. And the only vices I had was smoking and coffee.
Everybody did that.
Right, at that time, exactly. And when that happened, though, I realized that I was living a program, and and it was not of my own making.
Yeah.
Because I realized that if it was of my own making, I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah.
Right, and I wasn't enjoying it. Like I was scrambling with everything I could.
I think that's the biggest thing about, like, when you get to the point of awakening and consciousness, you realize that you're in a program. Right. And it's like, wait a minute, I don't even like this shit.
Exactly.
And one other thing I wanted to say before we got too far away from you talking about this is all those people that say that white men don't go through some shit. You went through some shit that I'm like, dang, that's crazy to me. But go ahead.
Yeah. So that experience changed everything for me. Like from that point on, I just couldn't concentrate on anything else with the same degree of intensity. And I was married at the time, right? And my wife left me for another dude. And wow. I could deal with immigration. I could deal with being in jail in Russia. I could deal with the army. Being a Russian kid in the army who didn't speak English. But this just broke me, man. Like my head was hot, and like the only thought I had running around in my head was that I'm in pain and my wife is fucking somebody else.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And I broke down. Like I grew up a man, right? And so, but I broke down. I started crying in front of her. I thinking that maybe that's what would help, and it didn't. It actually made things worse. Right? Oh. And she finally got. When I tried everything I could. Like I moved us into a hotel next to her job so we can spend more time together. And she wouldn't, right? And I finally, said, look, I'm trying to do everything I can to save whatever we have, this marriage we have. And she said, you know what? I'm so pissed at you, at my brother, at my father. I can't deal with you anymore, right? This is over. And I felt so relieved. I'm like, finally, you're speaking something that's true. Yeah. Like instead of that, just
trying to fakely work.
Strange atmosphere between us, right? Like not understanding what was wrong. Finally, I can see you, right? And now I love you. And she goes, I'm leaving. And so it broke me. It really did. Like for the next couple of years, I tried to maintain a semblance of reality. But I couldn't. Like my boss said, Val, I love you, but you have to go, because I kept missing deadlines, right? And landscape architecture, you can't do that. I tried to start a business with a friend of mine, and it failed miserably. And every time I drove out, I got a ticket for something. Like I got 4 tickets in a month.
Dang!
For not turning my lights on, for not turning the blinker on. Like my mind was just burning. And at one point, so I tried for about a year and a half. I tried to maintain my reality. Yeah. But it couldn't. It just crumbled out of my hands. Yeah. And at one point, I realized that I couldn't do anything else anymore. And so I got a backpack and went to do something I always wanted to do, but never thought I would have time to do, which is hike the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, yeah. That one right here, right?
Well, it's the other one on the other coast.
Oh, the other coast.
The one here is the Pacific Coast Trail.
Pacific, yeah.
Right. Appalachian
Trail. Shows you what I know, right?
No, Appalachian Trail is a little bit easier. Yeah, it's shorter. You have a larger window of time to move it, and there's a lot more people there. Yeah. And so I put 70 pounds worth of stuff onto my back and went off. And I hiked 20 miles the first day, and then I haven't stopped since. Like my backpack lost all the weight because I realized that most of it was just fears that I was carrying around.
Like life, right?
Exactly.
You're really
Well,
going
exactly.
through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after a couple of months of walking, I finally, my head cleared out, and all of a sudden I found that silence once again. Like when I got to Katahdin, day before I had to climb Katahdin, which is the terminus of this Appalachian Trail in Maine. Something happened. I woke up and there was no voice in my head again.
Yeah.
Like that whole day. And without voice,
Yeah.
what I saw, the colors I saw were so much more 3D than anything I normally perceive, that I realized that there was something wrong with my brain, that I was not perceiving reality normally, that it was filtered through something, and that when my brain would stop, I could actually see reality. Now that is not a small thing. Like that kind of realization, and that sent me on to search for years afterwards, right? And anything that didn't help me do that, didn't help me understand that aspect of reality, I just ignored, and I tried and let it go.
You mind if so you were saying that before when all the voices or the voice was going on in your head, right? And you looked out into the world, you didn't really see. It wasn't clear. It was like foggy or something. It was
it's like you're looking through a lens, right? And the lens of your perception, of my perception, right? Which is based on my past experiences, traumas, defensive systems, right? And there is a number of layers, not just one.
Wow.
So when I looked at the world, I was seeing my projection that I was that the fear I had about the past. Right? Possibly that's what I was looking for. I was looking for that fear not to manifest it again, right?
Oh, wow.
I was looking not to be afraid again, not to be hurt again, right? And that just changed how I was how deeply I was able to perceive, even physically.
Yeah, exactly. Physically view, because that's the part that got me, is when the voices stopped, you woke up and everything was vivid for you.
Yeah.
Right? And I do remember sometimes I'll be sitting outside or something, and all of a sudden, I think everything turns off in my head, and because I'll be like, "Holy shit, it's a bright day," and I never even realized it. Exactly. But now you put it into place for me why that happens, because my mind shut off.
Exactly. No, all of a sudden, you're real.
Yeah.
For a moment, right? And so that idea that there is reality, and I can know what it is. Right? There's a true self, and then there is this projected self. Now that's right. That is something to experience, right? And to realize that I was 36 when I had that first realization. Yeah. Right? And to realize that I should live 36 years of my life in with blinders on.
That's wild. That's wild.
Right?
That's
just
wild.
Reacting to.
We do it all the time.
Right? Exactly. Projecting things from my mind, reacting to other people's projection. And reacting to this default world as if it was real, when the whole thing is just projection of my mind based on traumas and expectations that I had that were based on values and beliefs that were not even my own.
Not even your own.
Right?
And you were having, like they say in the Tarot, the Tower moment, when no matter what you did, it was just falling apart, right? Yeah. Because your soul was like, no, look, you're going to see this, man. I don't care what here, you need another ticket? Here, we're going to give you another ticket. Are you seeing this yet? Like, this is the wrong thing for you to be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's wild.
Right. And so at one point I got in line with it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, and so what changed was that because I realized that I didn't want to live a program anymore, right? And especially one that's not me making. So my question was, okay, so why do I do things now? Like, what's my motivation now? And so what I realized is that there were certain things about life and reality that now I had questions about. I wanted to understand. And so what I would start doing, and I'm not suggesting that everybody does that, nor am I doing it now, but then what I would start doing is I would ask, okay, what's the next thing I need to understand? And what would the experience be that will teach me about that, right? And then dialing in that experience, right? So going after something I wanted to manifest in my experience, right? And I know manifest is a word that is going out of style, or create, in order to create greater understanding of reality, right? In order to understand more about me, that experience I had in actual reality itself. Right?
Yeah, the world you live in.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And so, just an example of one, right? Like I drowned when I was 10 years old. And
that's a reality, right?
Right. And it becomes important at one point because I grew up, like I said, Jewish and Russian in Latvia, and Latvians didn't like Russians and Russians didn't like Jews. And so I had enough going against me, and also I couldn't swim. Right, I'm a 10-year-old kid. Right,
You got everything going
yeah,
against you.
right. And with mom who isn't there, dad who is was pretty violent, and thankfully was not in my life, and was alcoholic and died from getting poisoned by drinking paint or something like that. So anyway,
Dang.
right. So it was not the best experience anyway. But I couldn't swim on top of everything. So in the summertime, when all the kids went to the river, right, neighborhood river, I was the only one sitting on the beach, right, where everybody else went to swimming. And so at one point I decided enough, so I was going to teach myself to swim, right? And so I went at 10 o'clock in the morning. I went to the river and I had a plan. There was this pier that went out about 1/3 into the river. I could swim underwater. I just couldn't stay on top of the water. And I thought I would run across, that 1/3, dive in, swim underwater 1/3, and the last third, dog pedal, anything I would have to do. If I was that close, I was sure that I could make it. And I thought if I can make it once, I can do it again and again, right? Just and I didn't want anybody to see me fail, and so I decided to go when nobody else was there. And so here I am, and I, executed my plan. I ran across that pier, got my, gumption on, and as I dived into the water was so fucking cold that all the air went out of my lungs just from the shock of hitting it.
Yeah.
And so instead of swimming underwater, I found myself in the middle of the river, at the deepest part of it, going. And I did that for a number of, I don't know, minutes. I don't know how long I did, but I could feel my arms finally went out, and I wasn't making any progress. The current was picking me up, and at one point I gave up. I knew that I couldn't do it anymore. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm dying now.
Yeah, wow.
Breathed in the water, and that was it. Right, and then there was this. I didn't even know that I was still experiencing something until I hit. A long time later, I felt my feet hit the bottom of the river. And I was really surprised that I could feel anything, right? I thought I was dead.
Yeah.
And my mind went, do I want to stay here? It's pretty nice, actually, right?
Yeah.
Or do I want to go back? I'm like, oh, mom would be really upset if I didn't come back. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go back for mom. And so I pushed off from the bottom of the river, went to the top, grabbed some air, went back down again, this time on purpose, pushed off again, and just kept doing this. And I don't know how long it took. I don't know what happened, but at 11 at night, I found myself on the other side of the river, right? Passed out on the other side of the river.
That's right? So wild.
So I don't know how I made it.
Wild.
Right? I don't know how I made it out, but I did. And so the two interesting things about that, right? One was that my body would freak out even in the shower if I got a little bit of water into my nostrils.
Now you're talking about?
Still.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like I'll do that.
Yeah,
right? And so
trauma.
When I try to think, like what would give me the most growth in my life, like what do I need to look at? I thought I need to like get over this. And so I decided I was going to take scuba diving lessons, right?
You dive in deep, don't you?
Right? And I decided that, I researched what's the best place to go scuba diving, and they said Red Sea, because at 30 feet you can still see something, like it doesn't wash out the colors. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to Red Sea to scuba dive.
Yeah, wow, that's right? So wild.
Made a whole trip out of it. And it just happened that I have some relatives in Sderot in Israel, and one of them was getting married, and so I'm like, perfect. And so that was like, it's like everything opened for me.
Once it's time to get over something, right?
Right. Like once I decided to challenge myself and grow, right? Like things showed up and let me do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
And from that point on, like, Appalachian Trail was part of that. A lot of different experiences were part of that. And as I was going to, at one point I thought, maybe I go to Harvard to forestry program, because I was, finished landscape architecture, and that was just the next obvious thing. And so I packed and I was driving to Harvard, and on the way there at North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, I saw a poster for soul retrieval.
Yeah. Oh, really?
And I'm like, okay, I'll try it. Right. And so I went, and the woman dropped me in, Phyllis Horn, and she dropped me into it. And I went somewhere. I went to Underworld, and I experienced things that I've never experienced before. And I usually don't talk about them, because somehow every time I say it, it cheapens the experience, because for me it was so life-changing. But what happened is that I saw things and I became things. And till that point, after that mind-stepping experience, I tried many drugs trying to figure out what happened, because it was pre-YouTube, and so we didn't have any information yet. And so I tried to take any way I could to find out what happened to me, right? And I never really hallucinated. Like I was, I was telling you, right? Like it took me six tries to feel weed. When I smoked it, 4 tries to feel marijuana, a couple of tries to feel LSD, right? Like I was just, right? And so
super grounded.
Exactly, right? And so here something happened. Like I experienced something that was way outside of my realm of experiences. I don't normally, like I said, hallucinate. Even since then, right? Only one other time I saw something that wasn't there before, right? And when I came out of there, I could feel my cheeks and my lips for the first time since I was 15, right? So at this point, I'm 37, 38 years old. And I realized since 15, I've been wearing a mask.
Wow.
Right? And
that's
so,
wild.
Right? And for the rest of it, like I couldn't stop in Harvard with my full trunk. I put everything in storage, and I kept driving for the rest of the year, smoking weed and crying and writing poetry in the back of my car. Across the United States into Canada, got stopped at the border with a joint and they confiscated the joint. I still have a little writ from the Queen of England that they confiscated the joint from me. I went through the other side into Canada through Niagara Falls and traveled up and down, and then finally drove back. And for that 1 year, I felt like every time a part of me came back, right? And I think that's what actually happened, is that I went back to something that even was before my conscious self experience in that soul retrieval journey.
That's so wild.
Right. And I was just recently told that not everybody understands what soul retrieval is. Right. And so there's this idea that our soul gets fractured when it comes into the body.
Yeah.
And so Bible mentions it, Kabbalah mentions it, right? And shamanic practitioners have developed tools, very similar tools, actually, almost the same, across centuries of time and thousands of miles of land distance, that are almost the same, right, for soul retrieval. So going back to see where the soul fractured and bringing a piece of soul back to reunite, right? And I realized that for me, at least, right, that was the path. That's what I needed to do. I needed to reclaim parts of my soul, physically, emotionally, spiritually, right? And that was the work to do. And that there is an experience of whole self available, right? Each time a part comes back, like I come into that undivided, limitless experience of self, right? That I came to know as my true self since then. And that each time a part would dissolve, that I would do the work and it would dissolve, I could see this, right? And even afterwards, when a different part would come on and there was enough parts, enough trauma happened to where I had enough soul feeling overwhelmed and split, right? So enough pieces were there to take over again, right? And to change my experience of reality. But every time, like, even though when it did happen, I knew now that there was a sun behind the clouds. Right?
That's wild.
Right? Yeah. I knew that what I was really at the very base of myself is this whole experience of self.
The whole,
Exactly, right? And so...
So I just a question as far as, so you did the soul retrievals, but not only is it when you first come into the body that the soul fractures, I've heard about that,
right.
But then also, like, even with modern day psychology, they say when you go through traumatic experiences, parts of yourself, but is that the same soul or is that something else?
Same thing.
It's the same thing, but they don't call it a soul. They just call it your ego or psyche or something like that.
Which is Greek for soul.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, that's what psychology is. The care of the soul. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, that's so wild.
Yeah.
And so depending, especially on all the traumatic experiences that we've had, there's just shards of our soul all over the place.
Yeah. Well,
but are they all over the place? They're just in here, but separated.
So
right.
So one way to understand that, right, is that when our soul experiences, usually younger, because that's when like we get easier overwhelmed, right? So when our soul when our psyche experiences an overwhelm, right, like some part of the psyche gets confused and frozen at that age and stays that way, and the rest of our soul, the rest of the psyche keeps on going, in order to survive, right? And as a matter of fact, when that first split happens, right, the psyche learns to start using that as a way to move through life.
Oh,
right?
use that chart or
Use
that
that
piece.
ability
Yeah,
to just
yeah,
cut
yeah.
things off. Well,
Oh, dang.
yeah, like so I meet a person I don't like, just kill him on my head. I meet the experience on my leg, I'm just gonna move, right?
Yeah.
And so all that escaping, like I've done a lot of escaping in my life, right? It was actually me splitting again and again and again, right? And so all those, and so once the psyche splits, like it tends to do that again, using that as a power, using that as a tool to move through life.
That's crazy,
right? But regrettably, like there's a limit to that. So our nervous system becomes more fragile, right? So if you kind of think of each one of us as a working nervous system, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, like it gets really fragile, really thin, and gets easier overwhelmed.
That makes sense because all these different parts that actually take in information, you've frozen, so then it's a very thin amount left. Overwhelmed because there's still all the stimuli coming, but not enough to take it.
Exactly.
Oh wow!
Right. And what's fascinating about this is that every time we like bring the part of the soul back, its abilities come back with it.
Ooh, from that younger age,
exactly. And so like I could feel, my face all of a sudden, right, that I couldn't feel for 18 years, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right? And so so if a 3-year-old part comes back, for example, all of a sudden you can sing without worrying about what anybody is listening,
or
dance or play.
What? I think I need to do this.
Right now, that is actually something really important because playfulness is the opposite of trauma.
Yes.
Right? And so when the part comes back and the playfulness helps other parts come back, right? Creativity and playfulness.
Exactly,
right?
Man. Yeah, and this is getting me excited.
Right? And so there's this realization then, right, that, like we have many different religions and they're all based on trying to help us to understand our origin and where we go. Right. But if we just look at it directly, if we are made in the image of our creator, right, we are creators.
We are creators. Yes,
creativity is what we normally do. And so when we get fractured and when our ability is barely there, right, you're overwhelmed constantly.
Yeah.
You just do the basic things you have to do. You just meet the requirement for rent, and
that's
God forbids in that space you have a child. Now you have to meet the child's requirements. And there's not enough of you, right? And you actually keep on splitting. And so there's a point where we stop splitting, right? We decide to stop, right? And we start recognizing that there's a way of separation and then there's a way of reintegration, right? And at least we stop participating in separation. Like we start noticing on daily basis, minute by minute, how do I still participate in separation and stopping it, just no longer going with it. Right?
I'm tired of thinning out.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And then start actually reintegrating instead. And that's the repair work.
Ooh, right? You guys hearing this? This is wild.
Right? And
so I told you it's going to be good.
So reintegration of the soul, reintegration for ourselves, right? Reintegration with ourselves in the community.
Yeah.
Right? So our relationships get better, right? Our life becomes more satisfying.
More satisfying.
Right? And so the work then is to not let the parts take over, right? And in the past, a lot of spiritual systems have taught us to kill our ego.
Yeah.
And so the greatest contribution of modern psychology is that the understanding of the inner child work, that inner child, those inner parts, right, they stay buried alive. They don't go anywhere.
They don't go nowhere. No matter what you do, right?
Right. And we have to do the work to bring them back up and heal them, reintegrate them back into the whole, right? And I think that piece is still missing from psychology today is that reintegration has to happen. It's not enough to just bring the part back and recognize it. I've seen that some systems even deify the child, right? It's your traumatized child, And no. We need to let the child know that, hey, honey, your perception of that reality, your decision to act in this way is not the only way, right? There's other options. And as soon as they see it, right, the reason they're frozen in there is because they think their reaction is the only possible reaction to that trauma.
Oh, wow.
But if you can show them that there are other possible reactions, they let go. And if you can show them that the reason that they're still frozen in the psyche is because they're resisting the pain of that trauma, if they would be willing to feel it, like I use a metaphor of a beach ball that you let float up. Right. Instead of holding it down, like it takes a lot of effort to hold it down and many beach balls especially, right?
It's not happening, right?
And
it's
when
coming out weird.
Exactly. And when they come out, they just crash and break things, right? And so you're like, what's wrong with me, right? And so if you let that emotion, one at a time, obviously, right? You let it come up, hopefully with somebody there, right? Like myself or somebody else doing the work, right? But if you let that ball come up and you no longer have to hold it there, right? Then that part no longer has a job.
Yeah.
And so it can actually come and reintegrate back into the whole.
And you can use the good parts of it.
Exactly.
Right?
And it
Instead
brings
of it
those
being
good parts
frozen,
with it.
yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so
Mm.
I'll ask that part, like if you didn't have to do that job, if you didn't have to protect the psyche, and
Yeah.
you 3-year-old trying to protect the adult now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you didn't have to do that, what would you rather do? Play, sing, draw, right?
Yeah.
Create. And like, perfect. Wouldn't it be wonderful if for the rest of your life you got to do exactly the one thing you want to do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If that would be your offering, right?
Yeah.
And oh yes, right?
Yeah.
And so would you be willing to come back? And so there's, little tricks and tools to help that part come back and reintegrate,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then hopefully, like through 1 or 2 sessions, right? Like we learn how to do it for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't need somebody else, because
To do it.
how many times can you pay somebody to go
To do it, I know,
exactly,
huh? Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But when you understand what the process is, right, you can actually start doing
Do
for
it
yourself,
yourself.
and that changes everything.
And I think that's what helped me like break out of my hole, because I thought I was born to be a criminal thing, and it was like this realizing that I kept looking at the world in a certain way and reacting like pre-programmed, like what they call it, like heuristics or whatever it is,
Right.
pre-programmed behaviors. But then I remember even talking to you once, and you're like, "Hey, when you do that, though, where did that come from? When was the first time?" That's what you said. When was the first time you did that? And it took me a while to realize a lot of my behaviors as an adult, there was really a first time before, because it gets so sophisticated. And life gets sophisticated, so you can imagine that I'm actually acting out this way from a child point of view. But when I was able to finally do that, and even when I first started being like, wait a minute, why do I care if this guy doesn't put the toilet seat down? What I mean? Why am I making such a big deal? I don't care if he puts the toilet seat down. But it was just pre-programmed ideas that made me upset about something that I didn't even care about.
Yeah.
And I think the other part that I wanted to say too is now I really want to work on these things, because when you said the better parts of yourself that got frozen in that period of time, that's what I feel like I'm not accessing. And I've even told Maeve recently, like, I feel like I'm not as happy or jovial or, like excited about life as I used to be now that I'm older. And I don't want that. I want to die having fun.
Exactly.
Playing tag. I don't know.
Exactly. Have a satisfying life.
Yeah.
That's designed by you for you. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
As we build in our business, there's one thing that we found that everybody needs, and that is capital. And in order to get capital, we have to understand our own financial literacy. So Maeve and I have joined this group in this company that will help you understand your financial literacy, be able to give you some different ways where you could gain capital. And if you're interested in that, and whether it's for business or for personal, you're trying to build your life and you need finances to do so, be sure to hit me up at 612-750-3948 and text finances. 612-750-3948 and text finances.
This is why I do this show right here, and hopefully this is helpful, for you guys. The other part of that too, Val, I want to make sure that people get your contact if you want to.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And because this is going to be playing, and I'm going to let people hear it all.
I'm teaching this stuff now because, spent 20 years, 28. I still do it. Like I still did, what I call it now parts work, but, I did it yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. Something came up. I'm like, what's going on? Right. And that ability to orientate towards yourself and know what to do, and to have, like what you just said was really important, I think, is that when we are missing our own internal experience of real self, we live through ideals and beliefs that we pick up somewhere else.
And I know exactly where I got it from. It's crazy,
right?
when you think about it.
Yeah, but what was the reason you got it? Right, is because your own experience of self was missing.
100%.
Right, it got kicked out somewhere. Like some false self took over, and now that's trying like suck in information. How do I behave so that people see me a certain way? Right, like who am I?
I know
exactly. Right, you're defining yourself by other people's views of you.
Yes, and
right?
trying to get getting acceptance from the outside instead of from the inside,
right? So that's the classic definition of a full self.
Yeah.
Right. So when your real self finds itself not enough for situation,
yeah.
and it believes that, I'm not enough.
Not enough. Yeah.
Then the full self develops, right? And the full self has a worldview, self-view, agenda, and a strategy, right? And the self-view, I'm not enough. Worldview, the world is a tough place, not a fair place. Agenda, I better get do my work to get my needs met, right? And the strategy, how am I going to get my needs met? I'm going to, fuck everybody because they don't care about me.
Yeah,
right?
me against the world, baby.
Exactly, right? Which is what right? For me, it was that I'm helpless, right? And so I need to be helpful in order for people to then meet my needs back, right? And shit like this, right? And so that core base belief, and then this false personality becomes our personality.
Yeah.
And then you take all these, right? And then you take all these typology tests, but inside there's something missing.
Yeah, there's something weird.
Right? Like nothing you do, nothing. You look for everything. You think maybe the next thing is going to fill that hole, and it doesn't.
Yeah. And people could be like, "Man, you're the man," and you're like,
"No. You're like, it's not it." Right? You're like, I'm just pretending.
Thank you, but
right? Yeah, exactly. Right, and so, and then the ability to see for the first time, to experience, this is what I am.
Yeah.
The thing is, right, because this I am, our most basic experience of self is this expanded
wholeness,
existence.
Yeah.
Right, that was a thing. For many years, I tried to understand what being means. Be here now. How do I be? How do I
now?
be?
Yeah. What are you talking about?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And I realized what it is that I exist. If you think of I exist.
Yeah.
Right? You have the experience of being.
Yeah.
That's what they're
just because you exist, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And that I exist is that experience they're trying to say, right?
Yeah.
I'm already that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of empty. It's not defined by anything, right?
Yeah.
It's limitless, right? And our mind looks for pattern recognition, for differences in order to define something.
Yeah.
That's what define, right? But it can't do that with this thing because it's undifferentiated. So to the mind, this void looks like something scary.
Scary, yeah, because
right?
it's all one block.
And yet it's what I really am.
Yeah.
And so in its effort to try to find something to define itself by, right? This person, this activity, this, I must be this, I must be this, I must be this, right?
Yeah.
It just keeps gluing these things onto itself,
on top of it. It looks all clumsy and weird.
Exactly, right? But it's none of that, because the actuality is that I have separated from that original experience of
allness,
self-aware awareness of allness, of extended, timeless, endless experience of existence itself.
That's crazy,
right?
Because we exist. It is, always has been, always will be.
Exactly. Whether the body is there or not,
it's always been there.
You mentioned death experience, near-death experience.
Yeah, NDEs,
right?
near-death
and so
experience.
One thing I saw when I dreamt, I didn't quite realize it until years later. In 2001, I was in Kathmandu at my first Vipassana. On day 7, I hit the same place.
Really?
Poof! Right?
Really? That's so wild.
And the reason I knew there was a place is because I experienced it when I drowned.
You're drowning. You're like,
it's the same thing. Oh my goodness gracious, right?
Yeah.
That I'm like, it's a real thing, So being able to come to it from a couple of different directions is really useful.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, it is useful because it's not like, that happened because of this. No, it happened because of this. It's happening because of this. It's everywhere.
Yeah, that's the shit about psychedelics, right? Every time we take psychedelics, what they show us is that our mind is not actually generating reality or consciousness. Yeah. It's actually meant to limit reality and consciousness to a survivable stream of information. It's
this point right here.
Just
type of thing.
Our mind's purpose is to limit what's out there to only the point that would evoke from us the behaviors needed to survive. That's it. It actually limits information. It doesn't create it.
Yes.
Doesn't create consciousness.
Yes.
It limits our focus, right? And depending on how many lenses we have, the more limited experience we can have.
And that's even true just even with the 5 senses.
Right.
Where the brain interprets the 5 senses, right?
Right.
And then the spectrum, even like when they showed the light spectrum, almost broke that light spectrum. But when they showed the light spectrum and how vast it is, but then but our visual spectrum is so small.
Right. 0.15 of 1%, right?
That's crazy. Think
of
about
what's
that.
available in the radiomagnetic spectrum. Exactly.
And that's how we're interpreting our lives.
Right.
That's
and then our brain,
wild.
even there's a great book. It's called The Case Against Reality, right? Where the author argues, that our mind is actually constricting information rather than creating anything.
Yeah.
Right. Which is beautiful to see. And so it's good understanding that our mind cannot help us understand whole.
Expand. And that's good, especially for me being a thinker.
Yeah.
When I'm sitting here like, why can't I understand the whole, grasp the whole?
There's nothing in the mind. There's nothing in our mind that can help us to experience wholeness.
That's wild.
Right? Absolutely nothing. Not even a small. The only thing the mind can do is distract us from it.
Yeah.
Mask it from us. Right? Not to say that, not to talk shit about mind. Like, I think mind is a beautiful thing. I go to sci-fi movies just to see what other minds come up with. Right?
Yeah.
I love mind, right? It's an incredible tool, right? Beautiful and terrible at the same time. But it can help us understand our expanded space state. So if in a sense, I think mind is kind of like a microscope.
Condenser. Yeah, or something.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, imagine walking around like looking at everything this way. Right? This is the mind, right? And then our sense of I exist, right, is actually a telescope.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and so you can't look through a telescope and see other galaxies. You just can't see the whole creation. You can only see one piece, and even if you see it, you don't understand the context.
Yeah. What is in? That's a good point too.
Right.
I had a podcast with Akashia, right? We talked, her. She's part of the community, and if you guys want to go back and see that podcast is here. But I asked her, like, being somebody of mind, like I'm so mental. And I probably needed that out of survival, trying to figure out survival. You said that, right?
Exactly.
The mind, and I needed to develop my mind so much just to survive the experiences I had. And then she was like talking about how the heart is actually the thing that sends out the electromagnetic field, right? And I always thought it was the mind, but it's the heart, right? And then she was like, and I was like, how do you drop into like feeling? Because people are like, oh, just feel it. And then she was like, well, are you aware of your right foot? Just don't look. Do you right? Oh yeah. And your left hand, yeah. Nice. Now how about your heart? Oh, okay, I get it. So you just bring awareness to it, right?
Exactly.
Just being awareness, and then you talk about the awareness. That awareness whenever you're going through something, and then that awareness that's seeing the thing that you're feeling.
Right. And to define awareness a little bit, right? Because I find that that's another spiritual word that maybe not everybody gets.
Yeah.
Right. But it's attentiveness.
Yeah, attentiveness. It's so simple, isn't it?
It is, right? And so the difference between this and this is our attention, right?
Attention,
And I think it's wonderful to have a bright mind.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's a great plus. But sometimes we tend to use our best quality to deal with everything.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Right?
Trying to nail it.
Exactly, right? So there's nothing wrong with having a really good mind. I think that having the experience of I exist, right? And then trying to describe that experience as a form of art to communicate, go, guys, there is a fucking direction here. Yeah. There is something here. You're dying from thirst. There's a fucking stream right over here, right? Come over this way, right? And try to do that in a way that is approachable, that people can hear, that everybody is invited, right? That nobody is left out. And like really jazzy, right? Like it's a form of art of it. That's what I think art is. Like, every good art is that. We stop like, for that moment we connect to that I exist, to existence, right?
That
like
whole existence.
Everything just disappears, and all of a sudden we're in a moment of awe, and it happens for everybody. Music, good friends, good love, right? Orgasming, drugs, right? It will move us past this limit of perception that we have lived in for the last, at least 5,000 years of recorded history. We lived in a world created by the mind. Yeah. Learning about what other minds thought about.
When you should be minding yours, you're like minding their mind.
Exactly, right? And so, we kind of we forgot that there was, more and very vital shit that we actually need to experience in order to feel whole, and that the whole is available. That even that idea that, like, I don't know how it happened that enlightenment became this fairy tale that only, 100 people every 100 lifetimes, reach, right? When it's just our most natural state.
That's
exactly
crazy.
right. Like we have to drag ourselves through miles of broken glass to get there, right? When it's actually the most natural state that happens to you. Every time you die, you go here, right? Like it's just
you're there.
As
you
the
don't have to
mind
do anything.
as the mind lets go, you go here, right? And that's why we're so fascinated by these near death experiences, right? Because it actually opens for a second.
Yeah.
And it helps if we have done some work into this opening.
Yeah.
Previous to death, because when it happens at death and we're not familiar with that, we don't know what's happening. Like the first time when I drowned, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not here. I guess I'm still here. What is going on?
Here or not?
Right? It took me until I was, 39 years old, something like that, sitting in meditation, hitting the same place. Go,
there it is.
Oh, not only is that it's what I am.
It's what you are. Yeah.
I am in this open, undefined experience, right, of existing itself.
That's amazing.
Right?
I've been chasing this whole chasing. I'm not going to, it used to be chasing like this enlightenment and trying to have these experiences. And I'm like, see, babe, you see, they go through this. And she's always like, why are you trying to have the same experience they're having? You already have had so many experiences, but they're not good enough for you,
I'm guilty of the same thing, man. But it's trying to understand, right? There's that thing you said, what have you done that worked and what didn't work, right?
Yeah.
I did a lot of stupid shit, man. I did raw for 9 months where I would eat only one thing at a time.
Yeah.
I exist has nothing to do with the body. I gave myself an eating disorder that I had to fucking cure for the next 20 years, right?
You were holy.
Trying to mimic what people were doing. I drank my own urine for like months at a time, right? Like not eating anything, right? Starved myself to fucking, right?
Wild.
The crazy shit, man.
The discipline.
Well, it wasn't discipline. It's fascination.
Obsession.
Right? Exactly. It's like, I need to know what happened. Like nothing else is real. Like everything else is just this. Like I really like Plato's allegory, cave allegory.
I was just thinking that. I was going to bring that up. That's so wild. I was just waiting to slide it in. That's crazy. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea, the Plato describes where there's people chained to chairs watching shadows move on the wall created by some sort of light behind them, right?
Yeah.
And thinking that that's reality for most of their life until one of them wakes up and looks around and goes, what's the light that's coming from? Or where's the light coming from, right? Like becoming aware that there's actually a light and then questioning what that is, right? And so and even though that person awakens, right, they can't really wake up anybody next to them.
Yeah, they can't.
Who are still like, no, this is a reality.
This is real. We've been doing this all this time,
exactly,
right?
Right? Like I invested so much into it, right? And so that was the idea that what kept me going is that I'm like, hang on a second, where's the light coming from?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it even gets deeper than that. Then when you realize that the light, they're really like, there's a fire and these people have these, like shadow puppet things. And then wait a minute, there's a way out. And then they go out. And then the other part is like because of all the colors and the trees and you get a little overwhelmed. Right. And some people go back in the cave, but some people are like, okay, I'm just
which is fine. Honestly, right? I think like there's no rules and laws in this.
Yeah,
right?
No.
Like we take any like I know I do. Like I take any path that leads me to I exist.
Yeah, expansion.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's a bus, I'll take a bus, a plane. I'll get off when it turns the other way, whatever it is. Right. Any psychedelic that, like I said, I've done a lot before. I don't do anything now anymore, but because I finally like figured out how to remain here. Yeah. Right. But like I would take anything, which is fine. Right. And then you go back. Here's a major thing. Like I had maybe 12 up experiences where I was like, floating in consciousness for 12 months. Right?
That's cool.
At the time. Sorry, 2-3 months at the time. Right. And then I would drop from it. Yeah. And I always blame myself for it. I'm like, I had it and I lost it. I'm shit, And what I realized now, 20 years later, is that realization is there not to keep, but to understand what's true, and then you go back down into your own reality, into your own layers of separation, and work back through them, and now you earned your place here. Now you can stay.
Now you can stay. Yeah.
That's the work, right? Yeah. This view from that top, right? That I thought, this is enlightenment. That wasn't it. It was just there to show you reality and motivate you to start doing the work now.
Yeah.
Now this work takes it takes as long as it takes.
A lifetime.
Right? And that's what I was saying. Like there's no rules or laws here, right? Yeah. Do what you want. I mean, this life is just an experience you're having in order to wake up, really. You know what I mean? Like that's what's going to happen this lifetime, next lifetime, 1,000 lifetimes from now. Eventually you're going to walk this path and finish it, But what's important about this is that we don't necessarily stop, right? Yeah. And there's nothing that has to be done.
Yeah.
except one rule that I stuck to that I believe in, which is we have to respect the unfolding of the soul.
Yeah.
Like the speed of the soul unfolding of opening has to be respected. You can't
can't make it happen. Hey, come on,
right?
buddy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah.
And so the metaphor I really like of that, right, is that if the egg is open from the inside, it lives. If it's open from the outside, it dies.
Yeah, dang. That's so true. Yeah. You're having an omelet if it's on the outside.
Exactly. Right. And so that's the only rule, I think.
Yeah, I really love this discussion. We got to have more.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Gotta have more. I'm just amazed. And we talk to each other all the time, and it's just every time I'm always like, wow, why aren't we always talking? But it's kind of like we've said, you get to a certain point, you know it's there, and then you go live your life, and you just work, do the work.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other thing I was gonna say about I listened to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and about being in the vortex and the vibration and the thing and all it is like we're on the leading edge of just experiencing the expansion of consciousness. That's it.
Right.
And there's no way that we could ever get it done. There's no way it's ever going to end, and so then we get to choose, or are we going to do it in a way where we're angry and upset and just like she calls it the contrast, right? The contrast, and we're stuck in the contrast of it all. Or we're going to be like, oh, there's the contrast. So this is what I want, though. This part here kind of sucks. I see it. I acknowledge it. And now which direction do I want to go from here?
I think that the reason there's work to do, right, is to recognize that we have a choice to either separate, not separate, or reintegrate.
Reintegrate. Yeah, right? I love that. Yeah.
Right. And to be able to create that choice, there's a certain amount of maybe not immediately apparent practices. Yeah. Like the one that really works for me is something called magical passes, which is a silly name. Yeah. You know what I mean? But Carlos Castaneda introduced it as a part of Toltec work. Yeah. And, there was some controversy, and so people kind of forgot about it, right? Yeah. But that one practice, honestly, in 28 years, I've been doing it for 28 years, right? And so every day, for exception of few, right? But what it does, it actually helps me to develop strength in my intent in the same way that I develop strength, like when I'm working out biceps, right? And so I can do more now. I can lift more. I can recognize when a part comes over, and I can be stronger than the part now and choose whether or not how to react. Now, I think that is really, really important because a lot of people don't have that choice.
Yeah. Like it pops up too fast, so it takes over, right?
Exactly, right? So the part comes over and takes over, and that's it. You don't even know that the part took over, right? Until later you regret that you said things or done things, right? Exactly.
I might know what you're talking about.
The part that's being punished is not even the part that did it, right? The part that's
disappeared again, right?
The part that's feeling bad about eating cake at night. The one that's waking up in the morning going, oh, why did I do that? It's not the same part, right? It's not even fair.
It's true.
Right? Yeah, it's true. And so, but to be able to recognize the part is coming up and then turn towards a part with love and empathy and work with it and integrate that, right? Requires a certain amount of presence. Yeah. Right? And that's what we call awareness. Yeah. Right? Like it needs to, like there are practices like this one, they will actually help you make your awareness stronger. Yeah. They call it intent. Same thing, right? Yeah. And it makes intent stronger. And so once you're stronger, I remember the first time I had, as a result of these practices, I had the choice. Yeah. Like I was driving down the freeway at Bay Area, right? And somebody cut me off, right? And I could just rage, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that right now. And it felt physically painful not to do it. Yeah. I'm like, no. And then it went past me, and I felt so proud of myself. I'm like, dude, I'm matured. Right? Yeah. Emotional maturity. Yeah. Right? And until that point, I didn't know that you could emotionally mature once you got stunted at whatever age you got stunted, right? Yeah. That was actually an available thing. Yeah. And then it started happening again and again and again. And that growth, feeling that growth, is the news that you need, that everybody needs, that you can't do this through your own effort, right? And these practices will help. Yeah. But that growth, man, it feels so good. Like it's the most addictive substance I've ever found, man. Yeah. Honestly, right? Yeah. Like I can't stop doing that. Yeah. Right?
You're like looking for things.
That's the thing I don't want to lose, right? And I imagine that's how tree feels when it grows.
Oh, especially
Right?
when it breaks through the ground.
Exactly.
It's like,
Right?
oh, I made it through all
And
this
so, and
crap.
feeling yourself grow is the
Yeah.
only thing I need.
Yeah,
Since that moment when I first woke up on that bench till now, right? That has always been the constant, right? Is that what do I need to grow next? Right? And now when the parts come up, I'm happy.
Yeah. Like,
even though it's fucking hard, I'm like, oh, I'm suffering. Oh, but this is gonna be so good when I see it, man.
I think it's kind of with Maeve and I's relationship. I think it's gotten to that point where we're like, we get triggered, right? And then even in the moment, even if I'm still triggered, I see something switch in Maeve and she comes at it a different way. And then it makes me be like, oh, she got it before I did. Just in my mind, I'm like, she got it.
We should have growth Olympics, man.
I know.
We should have categories.
And then I'm sitting there, being so this guru like type Buddha kind of like presence in the midst of this where I'm heated and she's all home. I'm like,
exactly.
She got
Perfect.
it. That's cool
Beautiful.
though.
Exactly. Yes. And that is the most valuable thing in the universe for me.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Hey, what's going on? We're going to get back to the interview right after this. If you like what you're hearing and you like the interview that's going on and you want to learn more about us, go ahead and go to thismodernmuystic.com where you can get access to courses, merchandise, and live events that we'll be at. Thismodernmuystic.com. We'll see you there.
You can find me at valherenow.com, which is my personal website, or gardenofTrueSelf.com, which is myself and my students now are putting together what we talked about today and some of the practices that we've discovered that seem to be most efficient into this offering that we offer for free. We don't charge for any of that, and it's available on that website. And you can always contact me for more information about various practices and stuff like that. And the only thing I charge is for my time, like when people come, if they need mentoring. But honestly, like I think that if there's a certain set of practices, like 3-4 main practices that take me about 40 minutes every day, that without which I don't think I would be able to move as quickly and as well as I can. Even now, 28 years later of doing these, if I stop, I can feel my awareness drop, like that ability to intend drops, right? And so my ability to have the choice, right, drops. And that choice is, I can't overstate like how important that choice is, right?
Yeah.
There was a dude named Viktor Frankl, a psychologist who was in the concentration camp.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl.
And he could see, like when people came in, he could see who was going to survive the concentration camp and who wasn't.
Wow, that's wow.
Right? And so when he was there, he found that he was looking for what that is, right? And he found out within himself, and he called it his 1 inch, right? And that was 1 inch that no matter how Nazis tortured him, that they couldn't take away from him. And that was his response to it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right?
That's crazy.
And so that what he describes, right, he says that that space between the 1 inch between action and reaction, if it's yours, you have found yourself. That's where you find yourself. And so that the greater that space becomes, the more human you become in his eyes.
That's wild.
Right?
Is that crazy what had him see what that was and build what that was? And so he had that 1 inch of himself, of his centeredness, that kept him from going to that level where they would be like, oh, you're out of here.
Exactly. Where he just gives up, right, and dies.
Yeah.
Right? Creates an experience where death happens.
I think everybody should keep in mind what Val's talking about here. Every time I talk to him, I feel rejuvenated. It's amazing. He's an amazing person. Stuff he's been through has built him into what he is. And just the tools that you can use, I highly suggest that you go check him out.
Thank you for blocking me, man.
Yeah, like for real. In real life stuff that I've gone through, and I'm talking about like calling in the middle of the night at a bar, and he just happened to be somewhere else about to kick it, and I'm like, man, I don't even know what to do, and he talked me off the ledge, really. So I appreciate you. Yeah, I'm so glad we did this. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
This is awesome.
I love that, man. What a beautiful fucking piece. What is that?
Oh, yeah. Look at this. No, for real. Look. You want to see this, man? Look. Here, let me take this off. You see this? Ooh, he just gifted me this. And let me tell you, I used to have a skull. It wasn't real skull, just to be clear though, but it was a raven. It was like a fake skull thing, and I lost it helping somebody. And then today he was like, "Hey, I got you something," and it is a raven head with the cube, right, and the wings on there. And this is the 64-bit cube, right? It's amazing. Told you this man. He knows. He's connected. Yeah.
And this is from Bali. A little quick Bali Ubud specifically. There's a place called Stargate, and these guys make incredible sacred geometry stuff. Incredible. I always visit there. I always have them make something for me, and so I saw this piece and couldn't just pass it up because
this
it
is
just
it.
matched you so well, man.
Yeah, this is it. I love it. I love it.
But now everybody's gonna think that I bribed you with it. That's why.
I know.
That's why you're plugging me
To be here. Not plug you in. Like for real, I'm telling you. You want your life to change? This is it. He's got something for you.
These practices, honestly, like not me, right? Like I'm not a guru or teacher or anything like that. I'm just a hiker hiking this dharma path.
And that's what a guru would say. So go ahead.
Right? And you know, if somebody else starts, you know, figures out there is a path and starts hiking and wants to know some information, right? You know, like what kind of backpack, what kind of a boots better work or whatever, you know, like that's my thing. Like I'm just sharing that, and I'm just another hiker on the same path. That's exactly. We're all just walking each other home.
Yeah, that's what the guru is saying. I appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you for joining us and deciding to spend your time with us. You could have been doing anything you wanted in the world, and you decided this is it. And we appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.
Appreciate you. Much love. And thank you very much for creating this opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Just talking and just manifesting this experience. And, moving into your own greater, like I just watch you bloom, you know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and you push me too.
Well, it's
not in a bad way. I'm saying like just by you being you, and I'm like, man, I got to do something.
And you know, one thing I thought of today, like a realization I had today, was that everything I've been doing till this point had a level of attachment to push something, you know, share this or share stuff. And that attachment was actually making it harder for me. That it was putting a spin onto everything that was just a little bit too much. And so today you said, you know, like you thought maybe you lost your mojo or a little bit. Yes. Right? And what I'm thought is like, good. Let go. Whatever.
Oh, the push. I see what you're saying.
Let go of the whole thing, right? And just do that which comes naturally right in this moment, which is talking for you, right? Talking from this space. And it just comes across perfectly. Like you own the space, man. Right? Like there's right? Exactly that. Whoever that you just came in is on that, right? And
I was like, look at the studio.
Exactly. Right? The lights. And that part doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's already whole, right? It's already before, right? That's our connection to that wholeness. We're already that. Yeah. Right? And just reminding ourselves that we're that and we don't need to do anything.
We don't have to do anything.
Nothing needs to be done.
You just got to show up.
Well, even that. We're already here.
We're already here. There's no time. We don't have a choice.
Exactly. I already exist, you know? And then we start like using love as fuel rather than like stress or guilt or shame or like I have to. Yeah. Right? Like
ooh, and that's really what I'm working on lately.
Exactly. Right?
Like when I look out into my world and see what's going on and you know, we're checking the bank accounts and stuff. I'm really learning to just be like, look, it's always shown up. Always. And I chose to walk a different path, so I got to trust that path. You know, it's amazing. Yeah, I like it.
Right? And then you're in the flow. When you're yourself, you're in the flow.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Otherwise, like if your mind is in the future or in the past, right? Fearing the past or anxiety about the future, you're not fully present.
No, not fully present.
And so that's
just thinking about what's coming next.
Right.
Then you miss what's going on here.
Exactly. Right. Even for good reasons. I'm like, oh, I should share this stuff with people. I'm like, hang on a second. I should. This is what should that which is. Exactly. Right. That's where attention goes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that you brought up the whole attention thing because it really simplifies the awareness. That's something about spirituality that they use all these words. And one of the things that really hit me is mindset. And they're like, oh, you got to have a certain mindset. And I'm like, what the hell do they even mean by mindset? And then what it came to my mind was that, you have a set of thoughts that you think over and over and over and over again. That same set of thoughts is what you got to change. It's not like some kind of.
But you shouldn't just pick up somebody else's mindset.
Yeah, mindset. Yeah, that's
replace
what I was
yours.
Like, wait a minute. Like, what are they talking?
That's
and
what
I see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just change the ones I got.
Yeah, and see that they were there for a purpose.
Yeah.
And then help them understand that there was actually confusion. Like that when that part reacted that way, it was kind of limited reaction. It was younger, didn't have the tools we have now, right?
Yeah.
And that wholeness is actually a greater experience. Actually, like I'll try to dial in the whole experience, and then I'll share with the part when the part comes up. I'm like, honey, it's actually this. It's okay. It's just confusion, right?
You try tapping into the whole experience in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so amazing. And even when you broke down all the different parts of the self, how many parts of us always, and then you break apart more and more and more and more. Yeah. And I can see that.
Yeah.
Like I can actually visualize. Okay, so me and Carlos, right? I was going through some stuff where Maeve and I, we were like going on journeys like 4 times. Well, we went like on 4 different journeys, right? And they seemed to have been going bad, right? But it was just that something was trying to come to the surface. And then I go on this thing with Carlos. And I do a journey on there, and that was the journey of the journeys, right? Where things really came into focus. And one of the things I saw was it was like the Matrix. Have you seen the Matrix? And then it was
my favorite movie.
Man, favorite. And they have another one I heard coming out. Another one, yeah. But it was the Architect. And they had all the different screens of Neo's reactions, right? Yeah. all of the possibilities. And I swear I'm in this hotel room with Carlos and he's explaining awakening to me, and all of my different possibilities of what could have happened in that moment were like in a honeycomb behind him.
Right.
And I was like, whoa. And now having this discussion and tapping back into that, it was all my different parts of myself that were having the
different
reaction.
Lenses.
Yeah. It was
right. So each part has lenses as well.
And maybe that's why it's like a honeycomb, right?
Exactly. Yes. Right. And each one is defined by how you escape. Like there's resistance. So there's a fear of the emotions, right?
Yes.
And then there's a resistance to that fear.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the strategies to escape. Right? Yeah. So either taking drugs, drinking, sex, working
leaving
too much.
For real?
Yeah, like maybe a year in a relationship and then leaving, right?
Yeah.
Like all these different reading too much, right?
Yeah.
Eating too much, right? All these escapes, and the fear of the fear is actually greater than the experience that we're actually trying to avoid.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And then who was that said, "Ain't nothing to fear but fear itself"?
Right.
I forgot what it was. Some
exactly
guy,
because the access to that part, to that lens, is willingness to feel that pain that split that part away.
Yeah.
And
Fear's
that part,
the gatekeeper.
And that part will not let you do that.
Yeah.
Because it's afraid that if it splits again, then you die. Right? Like it's literally fear of death. So 3 major fears: fear of death, fear of being alone, and fear of not being enough.
Yeah.
Right? And fear of being bad.
Yeah. And that's what Carlos in the moment, he kept saying, like, you have to be willing to die. And I'm like, but what came in my head is all these different ways that I would die.
Right.
During this journey, and it was so real, like.
Right. Just willingness is what's necessary.
Yeah.
Right? Not
the
death itself.
Yeah.
The willingness to experience everything that's there and not like leave it.
Yeah.
Face into it. Right.
Yeah.
And you've been doing it an amazing job of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just naturally. Like I think that whatever it is that made you feel that you're a criminal,
Yeah.
right? Like that aspect of your soul, right? That was this dedicated to whatever the fuck path.
Whatever
there was.
happens. Yeah.
That, right? And I think because of that, I think that what others judge our bad habits are actually the absolutely necessary parts of ourselves that we need in order to move on this journey, because this journey will take everything from you, and they're actually the good parts of us just pointed in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right? We can
I agree
understand
with that.
once we understand direction. It's very important. So many people are, doing practices for 20 or 30 years without changing because there's no understanding which direction they have to move in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But once you can see the direction, all of your abilities now, all of a sudden, like all that shit that made me a hooligan when I was a kid, right?
Yeah. Ooh,
Just that
that's the good stuff. Yeah,
right?
determination.
Like, it made me
Nothing can stop you.
Dude,
Yeah.
I'd spent 36,000 hours in meditation spiritual practices, right? It was that thing that made me a fucking hooligan when I was like,
no.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good point. And I try to tell people that even in in the reentry program and at treatment centers, when I teach my class, like, look, it's not all bad. Don't throw it all out, honestly. Because there's things that we experience that people that don't experience, they don't understand. But there's this tenacity and this love and this compassion and this. That's why we are so
and the appreciation
angry.
For reality.
Yeah. To being tapped right in.
When somebody speaks to you something real, right, and you hear it, you're like,
there it is.
Right? That recognition is rare.
Yeah.
Right? You have to get some pain in there. And so I had one teacher who used to say, you have enough pain in you, we can do something with this.
Yeah.
Right? You pay attention now, right? And so, always, right, the progress is always either inspiration or desperation. And desperation is a lot more certain.
Yeah.
Right?
It is certain.
Yeah. And so
desperation, it can really get you to do a lot of things. Yeah. And it's interesting when you said pain, and it's like a window pane.
Right.
And you're looking through you're looking through this pain.
Exactly.
You got to see through it to see this on the other side. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Recognize the pain that and how it like closes your view. Right? Like how you're like, like, hello.
You can see the world. Wow, it's probably why they called it that.
I don't know, but that's awesome. I love that. Yeah.
No, that's cool. All right. Well, I know they're going to walk through the door here pretty soon.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for participating with us and being part of this conversation and experience. Yeah. We always enjoy it. I always enjoy your presence.
Always, in your company. I always enjoy yours too.
Love watching you go into your beautiful self.
And you'll be here more, hopefully, right?
Hopefully, yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yep. We'll just keep bringing them back. Yep. And make sure when you watch it, you like it, subscribe, go check him out on all his on his website. You don't do socials, do you, too much? Or?
I don't. No.
Yeah. No. That's okay. Social media is a little convoluted, even though this is going to go up on.
Which is fine.
Yeah, which is fine. Yeah.
I'm beginning to create an Instagram thing, but it's not there yet. Yeah. Some of my students like, well, you need something.
You kind of need something, at least a placeholder.
Yeah. So it's getting. I'll share that with you. But ask any questions if you have, right, of either one of us. I'd love to hear questions. Good. Like there's so much information over 28 years that I forgot that I knew. That come up when somebody asks a specific question. I'm like, oh, it's this. Do that too, because we want to create some engagement and be able to get as many people, with the algorithm and all that stuff, get as many people involved, because you never know who needs to hear this stuff. It could be one little thing that'll tweak the next trajectory of their life in the direction that they're like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. So we appreciate you. Much love. Much love. And just to leave with, there is a better way, right? There's this dharma path that people have been walking for eons. We'll be walking for eons, and come play, jump in the puddles with us.
Nice, thank you.